Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review one of my most anticipated films of this year, Dunkirk, coming from writer-director Christopher Nolan. And Christopher Nolan is my second favorite director ever. And I love his films. I've loved all of his films that I've seen, and basically I've seen them all at this point, all the way from his first film, Following, which was a much smaller, and then Memento, and building all the way up to all of his big blockbuster films. And honestly, my favorite's Interstellar, which I know a lot of people don't like Interstellar, and it was a very divisive film, but I love it, and I think it's fantastic. And I was very excited for him to be taking on a war film, which really isn't a war film necessarily, and it's a very, very intense survival thriller kind of film. And it works on so many different levels. Christopher Nolan's storytelling, how he crafts Dunkirk, is so impressive. You're dealing with three different fronts basically. You're dealing with the sea, you're dealing with the air, and you're dealing with the beach. And you're following central characters, each one of them, and they're all going on different timelines. So the beachhead takes about a week. The sea, with these people coming over from England to pick them up in actual ships, takes place over a day. And then you have the air battles, which takes place over an hour. And how they all mesh together, and using nonlinear storytelling, which Christopher Nolan has shown that he does a fantastic job of balancing that, and he uses it in a very inventive way and very depth, with his ability to keep this all together and keep this very energetic and very engaging. And Christopher Nolan, honestly, this might be his most well directed film in terms of balancing everything he's trying to do here. And in terms of pacing, this quote unquote never lets up. There are moments that gives you a chance to breathe. That is true, because if there wasn't, you'd be exhausted by the end of this film. Which, to be perfectly honest, you feel exhausted anyway. But in terms of pacing, it balances needing to give you a breather, but also keeping on edge and keep introducing new ways of thrilling you and keeping you on edge. Because the tension in this is at fever pitch throughout. And you don't know who's going to make it, if they're going to make it, and how this is all going to play out. And all of these different scenarios coming together and balancing and overlaying over top of each other, it keeps, in an interesting way, hinting at things and introducing things and seeing different perspectives. And just the way all this was shot, the effects, because the thing is, this is all practical effects. They're real ships, they're real planes, everything is done. If it's real, and it's really impressive. And the tension is built so well based off of how this is all shot. The dogfights with the planes, it's breathtaking. There's so many gut punches in this film that there was moments where I felt goosebumps all over my body with how tense it was, and then there's moments where I teared up from just the sheer intensity of what was going on. I got to see this in 70 millimeter print, which was amazing. Seeing this on film and seeing how it pops on film in that ultra wide screen, and it was an amazing experience in the theater. And I can't imagine how it was in the IMAX, with the IMAX sound as well, because the sound design in this is unbelievable. You feel like you're right there when these shells are going off, and the haunting feeling of you sitting in that theater and seeing people's heads start to turn, and then you hear and just knowing that these planes are coming and are going to be dive bombing these characters just standing on a beach, and it's like there's nothing you can do. It's like either they miss or you die. It's basically what's happening, and people are just dropping to the ground in fear, and the intensity is fever pitch in this. And in terms of the actual cinematography done by Hoytema, this film is gorgeous. which is such a stark contrast to the brutality and the fear that's going on in this film. But there's just gorgeous shots. The plane battles are done in such a way that it's so breathtaking and unnerving with how intense this is. And there's just shots, these wide shots up in the sky, this beautiful sky with these dive bombers chasing each other throughout those shots and those frames, and how everything is put together, and how it makes you feel claustrophobic in moments where you're supposed to be feeling breathless because you can't breathe and you don't know what to do among this large amount of people and these shots inside these boats, and everything just feels so confining, yet there's shots of just breathtaking just grandness and epicness and scale, and there's some shots that are just beautiful when looking at these planes flying over everything, and everything is just brought so well together. And Christopher Nolan's writing with this too, it how he overlays all these different story threads in such a magnificent way, where everything feels so smooth and on point, and it's interesting to see how it all lays out and interlocks with each other. The only negative I could possibly bring up about this is there are some characters that you get to see layers to who they are, but there are some characters that are blank canvases. And I am a person who really enjoys characters, and there's movies that I absolutely love because the characters are so amazing. Characters really aren't amazing in this. They feel like basic people, and you don't get to know their personalities. There are moments, and I'm not going to take away from Christopher Nolan's writing and his filmmaking, because there are moments in amazingly well done, subtle ways that build character development for some of the characters, but some of them, it's just, there they are. They're just people trying to survive. And in the most bare bones way, that is what's going on here. And this is a real life thing. But people also do have personalities, so you don't get to feel that a whole lot, which means some of the moments could have felt even, just imagining that this could have felt more intense and more stakes and more on the line if you actually felt really connected with the characters. That would have been ridiculously overwhelming, but could have been put this up there as one of the most intense and emotionally impactful films ever. And it was well on its way. It just lost a little bit in terms of connecting with the characters. The dialogue's very minimal, and I think that's the point. There's not supposed to be a whole lot of dialogue, and it's serviceable and it makes sense where it's supposed to be. There's no moments of there's no real moments of levity, there's no real moments of fun character dialogue where it's supposed to be like, that snappy dialogue and back and forth between characters. It's very organic, it's very in the moment what they need to be saying in these moments, and very technical, and it does its job. It's what it's there to do. But the themes of survival and just human nature in this film and what they take on here is so interesting and so prominent, and really encompasses this whole entire film and makes this a lot deeper than just a basic thrill ride of a film, because there are moments where you're trying to balance the needs of a human being against the needs of a different human being, and the paranoia and the need to survive, and that very basic human instinct of, I need to preserve my life, and does it come at the cost of other people? And there's some really impactful moments in regards to that throughout this film. And in terms of the music, Hans Zimmer's score for this film is so intense, and I know I keep using that word, but this film is intensity personified in a film. The fact that the whole score is set to that tick of a clock when you know there's time running out, and just that repetitiveness just puts you on edge. And then the repetitive nature of the strings in the music and everything. It just keeps building and building and building and building, along with the great cinematography and the great energy that Christopher Nolan brings to his direction. All of it just keeps building up to this fever pitch where it's about to explode. And you're just ready for this to just boom and explode, and when is this going to be over? And this isn't a super long film. It's an hour and 40 minutes. Hour 45 maybe. But it's just fever pitch throughout the whole entire thing and keeps you on edge. And it's like, when am I going to get that release of I can relax now because I know that they're okay? And the craziest thing is this, like, you don't know particularly about singular characters, but this is based off a real story. You know what happens, but how well this is put together is just so intense that you don't know how this is going to end, what's going to come next. And the music just elevates all of that throughout this whole entire film. Now, when it comes to the acting, this is an incredible ensemble. Everyone does their jobs perfectly. Even Harry Styles, from One Direction, does his job well. I'm going to start with the veterans who are noticeable names and stick out. Cillian Murphy does a really good job in this film. Mark Rylance, Kenneth Branagh, they all have their moments that they really get to shine in this film. But out of all the veteran actors that are in this, Tom Hardy, who, yet again, is completely covered up throughout his whole entire role in this film with the oxygen mask and his flight goggles, the way he uses his eyes and his body language to show us exactly the fear running through his head and him knowing time is running out throughout this film and what he needs to do was breathtaking. And he is definitely up there for best supporting actor for me so far this year, because I don't know if there's another actor out there that acts with such physicality that it doesn't even matter if they say anything. And Tom Hardy is getting a lot of those roles where he doesn't need to say a thing. He just needs to be there, impactful, and show us. Doesn't have to tell us how he's feeling. He can just show us with his eyes and how he carries himself, and that really stands out in this film. Now, I want to give a shout out to some of the young actors in this film. Fionn Whitehead, Alnarim Burnett, and Tom Glencarney are some of the young actors who this is one of their first big roles, and they get to really shine in this film and really get to show us a great performance that feels so natural and so organic. And in terms of overall this story, you get dropped in so quickly, just boom, you're in it. And then you finally get to the end and really get to understand what they went through and why this is such an important moment in World War II, and to show the ability for human survival and how they can survive and how far they'll go. I love Dunkirk. It does have that one glaring kind of issue that takes a little bit away from the film, but I'm going to give Dunkirk an A.